Hi everyone, this video is going to be a brief walkthrough of the unknown number 3 report, which is really just you creating a flowchart. So what I want to point out, is that for this assignment, you're essentially creating your own version of the unknown chart that was provided to you for Unit 2. Okay, so before I get into the details of this assignment, I want to make sure you understand what a flowchart should look like. Okay, so essentially the information is flowing in a downwards direction, okay, oftentimes branching off into multiple different directions, and it's always, each branch is essentially going to identify a new test or a new organism. Okay, and so the bottom row here is always going to be the organism name, okay, written correctly. And so remember, for Unit 2, we said, okay, well, what test is going to help us ID our two different groups? Well, for us, it was the catalase test, and that divided us into our staphylococci and our streptococci, right? And so you need to think about what test or what media can you use to differentiate the fermenters from the non-fermenters, okay? Now, of course, this chart is not going to work exactly because we have 3 fermenters and 5 non-fermenters, but it's the same gist, right? So sorry, there's a glitch. If you had the pause in the video, I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened. If not, ignore what I just said. Okay, so, when you have your branch, you're going to end up with 3 lactose fermenters and 5 lactose non-fermenters, okay? And there's actually 2 different media that you can use here to do the split, okay? So just make sure that, you are meeting all the requirements of the assignment, okay? But that you're not just doing like separate individual columns for each of the unknown organisms, okay? It needs to clearly delineate. Okay, remember for us, over here was blood auger, and so it was differentiated by, over here it was blood auger. So we had like beta, alpha, and gamma, right? So the different, observations and results. And then based on that, okay, well, if we had beta, then we needed to do this other test that would allow us to get to, it was strep pyogenes or strep agalactiae or whatever, okay? So make sure that you're not just doing a glorified table, and you're not just doing individual pathways for each individual organism, okay? You need to be connecting the tests and how the tests help you figure out which organism you have. So now let's go over the actual assignment, okay? So your flowchart needs to differentiate all 8 of the unknowns, okay? And again, you must use a flowchart format. You can write this by hand. You can use, you put it on the computer. You can make it on a big old poster board and send me a picture of it, okay? Now, I'm hesitant with that in a virtual setting because will I be able to see all the detail in a picture? Because what I want to reiterate, because notice here, I said that you can turn your paper sideways and use more than one piece of paper, right? Put the fermenters on one and the non-fermenters on another. And while you can do that, you have to make sure, though, that I am able to clearly tell what test or media differentiated them. Okay, you can't just skip that step and have a piece of paper starting here with your fermenters and here with your non-fermenters. Okay, now if you want to say, okay, I did this test and I got my fermenters and non-fermenters, but please see page 2 for all my non-fermenters, and you only include the fermenters, that's fine. Okay, but you have to make sure I can see that initial test. If you use more than one piece of paper, the connections have to be obvious. And what I would maybe suggest doing is you can only submit this assignment one time. okay? But you can attach multiple files. So if your flow chart is 2 separate pages, take a picture that where I can actually see it, where it's both pages together so I can see the overall flow. And then you could also take a picture of then the individual pages and just upload all 3, okay? But it's up to you to make sure that I know what's going on, okay? So maybe clearly, write on the paper, big picture, or name your file, overall flow chart. And then the next individual page is just fermenters, non-fermenters. Because this is due at the end of the semester when I'm trying to pump out all of y'all's grades. So I don't have time to sit and try and figure out what you've created for me, okay? It needs to be really crystal clear. Okay, so, you can't just copy and paste straight from the PowerPoint, okay? You can use the photos, but all the text needs to be in your own words, okay? A rule of thumb is that no more than 3 consecutive words should be taken from a source, okay? Anything 3 or more is normally considered plagiarism. Now, of course, there are exceptions. If you're saying, I'm going to the right? I'm going to is very, very common. But if it's being sciencey, right? And I can tell that you just took my words from the PowerPoint and put them on your own, that's plagiarism, and you're going to lose a lot of points. In fact, it may end up with you getting a 0. Okay, so please put everything in your own words, but you can use the photos. Okay. All right. Make sure that you include all of this media. Okay. And then you're going to show pictures of all the results. So the pictures are going to serve as your observations. You're then going to give me the positive or negative results, okay? And then you're going to give me the analysis. Now, the PowerPoint does not always tell you what the analysis is. You have to tell me that. And you always go back to the purpose of the test. So for instance, with the phenol broths, the purpose was to figure out which sugar the organism could ferment. So your observation might be the glucose tube turned yellow. So that means the result is positive. So the analysis, that organism can ferment the sugar glucose. Okay, so again, make sure you're only giving me observations in the observation section. Make sure you're only giving me plus or minus in the results section. The only exception there is going to be your TSI test, which is going to be either K over K, A over A, K over A. Okay, so remember the letters are your results for that test. And then, of course, only give me your analysis. I don't want you to be redundant. The test was positive, so that means the organism can ferment glucose. You've already told me that it was positive in the results section, so you don't need to take up valuable space telling me again. So I want to point out one thing here, though. Okay, so for the analysis of results, I only give you extra information about 1, 2, 3, 4 of the tests. But notice you have to talk about more of them. So you need the analysis for all of the tests. Okay, I just had extra information to tell you about this. Okay, about these tests. Alrighty, so, but I do want to point out though, real quick, that you're only giving analysis on the positive results, and then I give you information about the results. So even though it's under an analysis bullet, remember, positives, negatives, those are results, not analysis, okay? But you're only giving me the analysis for the positive ones. Okay, and honestly, if you gave me the results for the negative, I mean, I'm not going to get upset with you. But well, let's just follow the directions. Only give me the results for the positive because we are limited on space. All right. Yeah, so your brain is like big paragraphs of information. So just make sure that your observation results analysis should go with each respective plate or tube, right? Don't write this long paragraph about the test in general. I want to know, okay, this tube is purple, so it's positive and it means this. Make sure you tell me what all the abbreviations mean. If you use abbreviations, if you just spell everything out, that's fine too. And make sure you write your organism names properly, okay? That means binomial nomenclature, but also think back to how we should write organisms, whether you're writing them by hand or if you're underlining them. Okay, so if you have any questions about this, please let me know. All right, y'all, have a great day and a happy holiday.